From attacking concert goers with crutches to urinating on fans mid-performance, some musicians have crossed the line even at the most raucous of shows. When it comes to concert goers capturing photos and videos on their cell phones, there are two schools of thought. Some believe that there's nothing wrong with capturing these moments for posterity, while others argue that fans should live in the moment and keep their phones in their pockets while enjoying the show.
I asked if we could do that, go out and talk to the crowd and say, would you please just not take your phones out? Let's just enjoy this with our eyes and ears.
Many will agree that the flash from a cell phone camera can be a hindrance to an onstage performer. Apparently, that was the case during a May 2019 Judas Priest concert in Rosemont, Illinois, where Blabbermouth reports that frontman Rob Halford reacted to this annoyance by kicking a fan's phone out of their hand while they were filming the performance. While it's understandable that Halford was seemingly distracted by the bright light emanating from the phone, he may have gone a little too far by potentially damaging the device instead of warning the fans about flash photography in between songs. When footage of the incident began to spread online, Judas Priest didn't show any remorse on their singer's behalf. In a statement published on the band's social media, they wrote, "The facts are we love our fans, and you can film us all you like and watch our show on your phone rather than in the flesh. However, if you physically interfere with the metal god's performance, you now know what will happen." Back in their heyday of the late 80s and early 90s, it was par for the course for Guns N' Roses to end shows early whenever lead singer Axl Rose wasn't feeling well or was simply in a bad mood. And while occasionally these early curtain calls resulted in outrage from fans, one 1991 performance by Guns N' Roses ended in utter chaos. On July 2nd of that year, Rose interrupted the band's performance of Rocket Queen at the Riverport Amphitheater in St. Louis and asked security to stop a fan who was illegally taking photos of the show. Unsatisfied by the lack of action from security, Rose jumped into the crowd to confiscate the camera himself, brawling with some fans as his bandmates kept playing. Speaking about the event with Classic Rock in 2019, Rose insisted that security had deliberately ignored his request, which inspired the singer to personally put a stop to the illicit photography. After climbing back on stage, Rose angrily announced that he was walking out due to the security team's alleged incompetence. Unfortunately for the concert attendees, the crowd started a riot as a result of his decision.
When the house lights went up, some 2,000 of the 20,000 fans began to rush the stage. Along the way, the fans assaulted security and police officers.
Based on the relaxed vibe and humorous lyrics of Afroman's biggest hit, 2000's Because I Got High, one might think that the singer and rapper is a pretty relaxed person. However, there was nothing laid back about the way he acted during a February 2015 show in Biloxi, Mississippi, where he unexpectedly punched a female fan who had climbed on stage to dance to his music. The fan, Haley Bird, was hospitalized and diagnosed with a concussion and facial injuries. When she spoke to WLOX 1 month after the incident, she admitted she was still dealing with anxiety caused by the attack. She also added that she did not feel Afroman's apology after the transgression was sincere, saying, "He apologized for slapping or pushing me, and I just felt that it was more than that. My injuries were more serious than that. I was knocked off my feet, and it was just upsetting to see how he reacted to it like it wasn't a big deal." Bird sued Afroman for simple assault, and in 2018, the Sun-Herald reported that the musician settled to the tune of $65,000 after pleading guilty to the charge. The outlet also wrote that the incident with Bird was not an isolated one, as Afroman had been caught on video physically attacking fans on stage at 2 separate shows in 2014 and 2015. When Rage Against the Machine wrote Wake Up for their self-titled 1992 debut album, they almost certainly didn't imagine people relieving themselves on stage while covering the song. However, almost 3 decades later, that exact event transpired. At the Welcome to Rockville Festival in November 2021, Brass Against, a band best known for their brass-heavy covers of hard rock and heavy metal songs, was in the middle of their cover of Wake Up when their lead singer, Sophia Urista, asked a male fan to come up on stage. She then asked the man to lie down. When he did so, she pulled down her pants and urinated on his face while still performing, shouting the lyrics, "I think I heard a shot," as the song built towards its outro. Not surprisingly, the act drew some shocked reactions and jeers from the Florida audience, and inspired a plethora of tweets referring to the frontwoman as urinista. A day after the controversial performance, Brass Against issued an apology statement on X, formerly known as Twitter, writing, "We had a great time last night at Welcome to Rockville. Sophia got carried away. That's not something the rest of us expected, and it's not something you'll see again at our shows. Thanks for bringing it last night, Daytona." The Brass Against incident was not the only instance in which a musician turned the stage into their own personal restroom to the detriment of concertgoers. Back in 1993, Blind Melon was hot off the heels of their hit single No Rain, and their late frontman Shannon Hoon also got carried away during a Halloween concert in Vancouver. As Stephen Newton reported for the Georgia Straight, the evening first went off the rails when Hoon performed completely nude and apologized to fans for enjoying himself too much to put some clothes on. After simulating a sexual act with a man wearing a bee costume, Hoon and the rest of Blind Melon performed No Rain. But contrary to what the title suggests, the singer did indeed make it rain by urinating on fans in the front row. Though the crowd booed at the action, the band did get to finish their set. However, according to Newton, local authorities then arrested Hoon and charged him with indecency. It seems that indecent exposure is an unfortunate habit that dates back to even some of rock's earliest and most unruly figures. One of the most famous examples of this twisted tradition allegedly involved the late singer of The Doors, Jim Morrison. According to The Independent, the event in question took place on March 1, 1969. During the instrumental break of The Doors' track 5 to 1, the singer abruptly called the fans in attendance idiots and slaves. The rant seemed to go on and on, as the Lizard King drunkenly yelled about various philosophical concepts while throwing in a whole lot of sexual innuendo for good measure. Then, after a failed attempt to get back to the music, Morrison continued rambling. At some point thereafter, he allegedly whipped out his penis. All this resulted in Morrison getting convicted on charges of profanity and indecent exposure. Even in recent years, there is a fair amount of debate about what actually happened that fateful Miami evening. Some fans on the Mild Equator fan page suggested that Morrison showed off his member, while others deny these claims. Regardless, the event has been cemented in rock history and has been discussed and parodied on many occasions.
That night marked the end of Jim Morrison's rock god status.
As Morrison died in 1971, he's no longer around to explain his side of the story, but his Doors bandmates have maintained his innocence. Keyboardist Ray Manzarek told NPR in 1998 that the fans who claimed to have seen Morrison's penis might have been hallucinating, while guitarist Robbie Krieger outright denied the claims to The Independent. Unruly fans will always be a staple of concerts, but it can sometimes be hard for performers to keep their cool in the face of such adversity. This was an issue singer and producer Akon ran into in 2007, when he failed to stay frosty while dealing with an allegedly troublesome fan. According to The Guardian, the I Wanna Love You singer was performing at a show in Fishkill, New York in June 2007 when he noticed that a fan had thrown something at him. He singled out 15-year-old Anthony Smith as the most likely culprit, brought him on stage, and threw him right into the crowd to teach him a lesson. Smith apparently landed on another fan, who claimed she suffered a concussion. Akon was later charged with second-degree harassment and endangering the welfare of a minor, though he initially pleaded not guilty despite the many videos posted online by fans that showed him tossing the teenager off stage. About a year and a half after the Fishkill concert, the singer pleaded guilty to harassment and received a $250 fine and 65 hours of community service, according to the New York Times. Singer Courtney Love does not like talking about her late husband Kurt Cobain with fans. Unfortunately, some attendees at the SWU Festival in Sao Paulo, Brazil, found that out the hard way when the singer-guitarist cussed out an audience member who was holding up a picture of Cobain before briefly walking off stage. One could argue that the fans' actions at the SWU festival were tantamount to trolling. However, there was a much less ambiguous reaction when Love performed a similar stunt 16 years prior, during a whole gig at Club Paradiso in Amsterdam. After the band performed the song Asking For It, Love went off on an apparently abusive fan who threw a drink at her. In an audio recording of the event on YouTube, you can hear Love viciously fat-shame the fan and briefly walk off stage. She then returned to the mic and asked if the fan was upset because she had had sex with the likes of Nine Inch Nails' Trent Reznor, Lemonhead's Evan Dando, and Hollywood megastar Brad Pitt. She topped it all off by announcing that she and Cobain hated Amsterdam and suggested they go see Nine Inch Nails instead. No musician deserves to get drinks thrown at them, but it seems as if Love may have punished a whole crowd for the actions of a single member. Queens of the Stone Age frontman Josh Homme has been involved in a number of onstage incidents and fan altercations dating back to the early 2000s. If you ask him, however, many of these confrontations occurred because he wanted to teach troublemakers a lesson.
I had the build and the willingness to protect people from bullies.
Unfortunately, Homme hasn't always lived by the anti-bullying ethos he preaches. During Queens of the Stone Age's performance at the K-Rock Almost Acoustic Christmas concert on December 9, 2017, Variety reports that Homme insulted the fans in attendance by calling them the R-word. After talking badly about the headlining act, Muse, Homme again directed his troubling behavior toward the audience, demanding that they boo him and suggesting that they take their pants off. For all his belligerent actions at the K-Rock event, perhaps the most notable was what Homme did to a photographer working the show. The singer-guitarist was caught on video kicking Shutterstock photographer Chelsea Lauren's camera, hitting her in the face in the process. Homme explained in an apology statement that he was, quote, lost in performance and that he didn't mean to hurt anyone. However, Lauren thought otherwise. As she told Variety, the vocalist was smiling after he hit her, which suggested to her the act was deliberate. Since his eponymous band's rise to fame in the mid-90s, Marilyn Manson has been a magnet for controversy. While much of his alleged misbehavior took place off stage, there have also been instances where the shock rocker behaved questionably while performing as well. One of the more recent and notorious incidents involving Manson happened during the Madrid, Spain leg of the 2018 Download Festival. A fan who attended the show took to Reddit, sharing that Manson was being booed by throngs of fans who were looking forward to watching the next band, Avenged Sevenfold, perform their set. After about 30 minutes of persistent boos and jeers, Manson asked a group of fans to come on stage. When one of the audience members walked up wearing Avenged Sevenfold merchandise, he asked the fan to take off his shirt, quipping that this was not an Avenged Sevenfold performance. After Manson insisted that the young man wear the Peruvian flag he was holding in lieu of his tee, he reluctantly complied as Manson directed his band to play the next song. It's nowhere near as scandalous as just about every other allegation Manson has dealt with, but the embarrassed look on the fan's face suggests that the shock rocker went too far. More so than all the musicians mentioned on this list so far, Gigi Allin is probably the most well-known for crossing the line with fans at live shows. In fact, it's probably the most famous part of the punk artist's legacy. While the songs he recorded and performed as a solo artist and with bands like the Murder Junkies were extremely offensive on their own, they may have been the least offensive thing about him. The average Allin performance would see the shock rocker performing nude or nearly so, engaging in self-mutilation, and even defecating on stage and throwing his excrement at the audience. Allin also got into many physical altercations with audience members, including a few detailed by the Austin Chronicle in a retrospective of his especially notorious 1992 show at the city's Cavity Club. One that stands out is the moment when he spotted a female fan on a crutch due to a broken ankle, pushed her to the ground, and swung the crutch while making his way to the back of the venue. Allin then caused more chaos at the back of the club before returning on stage to face the wrath of the Austin Police Department. As he had an outstanding arrest warrant in Michigan, Allin wound up serving 1 year in prison. Just months later, on June 28, 1993, he was found dead from a heroin overdose. If you or anyone you know needs help with addiction issues, help is available. Visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP, 1-800-662-4357.